We are back, and I always say this, right? But I really genuinely enjoy trading. And I say that I'm excited because I actually am. Like, if you're not getting excited, if trading doesn't spark some type of excitement for you, maybe trading isn't your thing. But I like it, even though people say that it can be boring, and it can from time to time, especially if you're waiting or if you're in a moment where the market is kind of consolidating and then there's nothing happening. It can get kind of boring. But that's when you set up your trading alerts, so that it's not nearly as bad for you as you kind of wait. And I will get a little bit more into the trading alerts a little bit later on when we jump over to GU, because I did a little screenshot just to kind of show you how to set up your your alert and how it's going to kind of look from the phone, and then how it's going to actually look on a monitor if you're doing that. So anyway, if you are new here, I am Ashley, and I am here to teach those that are day traders, intraday traders, and swing traders. If you're looking for scalping, that's really not my deal, but I'm sure that there are other people on YouTube that you can find that are phenomenal scalpers for you. So what we'll do, and my goal, as always, is just to help you become a better trader, and then have a community where newer traders can feel comfortable enough to ask the questions that they may not have the answers to, and talk to one another in the comments. And then maybe eventually we'll have like a Discord too, so that'd be super helpful. So just going ahead, we're going to start on the monthly on all of the pairs this week, because of course we're starting on a new month. So let me get this guy out a little bit so we can see what it looks like on a larger scale, or from a bird's eye. So if you are looking at AU as of right now, it looks like, even though this candle is green, it looks like it's strongly pushing to the downside. But we would need to see what's going to happen when price gets here. But remember, it could take another month, another month or two for a price to actually get to this space sitting here. So that is something to keep in mind. Let's go ahead and we'll work down to the weekly and just kind of slowly go through the motions for each pair and see what it's looking like potentially for the next maybe couple of weeks. Even though I plan to do the video every week just to kind of check in. Okay, so as of right now, price looked like it kind of struggled if we're looking on the weekly, and we're looking like it's almost looking like a doji to some extent. It's not a perfect doji, but it is kind of giving me doji energy, and we're not really getting much of either direction on the weekly. Let's try down to the daily. I was a little perplexed when I was going over this to try and figure out what we could potentially be seeing over the next couple of weeks. I'm still learning how to delegate and understand how to explain what's going to be happening over the next 2 weeks rather than just over like the week. But we are here to learn, so we'll figure it out as we go. As you can tell, I know that I said that I was going to actually use this account to trade on. I will be showing you my live account as well, but I was not able to use this account, so my apologies on that. I'll definitely work toward that in the next coming weeks, so that the numbers change and you can get an idea as to how the progress has gone. Okay, so as of right now, I still believe that we're in a downtrend. Until I can see price get above here, I believe that we're still in a downtrend, and short-term downtrend. I think that last week I said something about GBP, and it was headed in the direction that I had assumed, but it was only for a short period of time because it wasn't able to get past that bank level. So I think kind of the same thing is happening here with AU, where we could potentially see price kind of bounce back and forth a little bit, but until it gets above here, we're still headed down. But then again, until it heads, until we are able to get past this space, I still believe it's in consolidation. So just kind of to give you an idea, like, just because price may be headed down in a short direction for a shorter period of time doesn't mean that you can't get some of those pips, but it just depends upon how your trading strategy is set up and how you kind of want to work it. Now for me, I I would prefer it to be a larger amount. But again, we're on the daily, so this could actually be some pretty decent pips. But let's switch over to the 4-hour real quick. Just make sure it's worth your while. You know what I'm saying? Don't take, well, you can do whatever you want, really, but I prefer not to take a trade unless I'm getting 2 out of 1 in one trade. 2 out of 1 or more. Like, I'll do 2 out of 1 is the smallest amount, and then that the sky is the limit. It could be a 6 out of 1, it could be a 5 out of 1, it doesn't matter. But I just don't like taking trades where it's a 1 out of 1. To me, it just seems kind of like a waste of time. But if that's something that you like, then that's, hey, that's your trading strategy. And the cool thing about trading is you get to choose. You know what I'm saying? You have that autonomy to choose what you want your setups to look like, what you want your strategy to look like, and the rules and regulations in which you set for your trading business. So what I'm thinking is that I'm feeling like, again, I'm feeling like I gotta change that. I'm feeling like we are gonna continue to see how we're gonna run into some consolidation. Again, I don't think that we're gonna be changing direction, or it's not going to be changing directions from the downside short term, unless we're able to get up and past here. And this is something to keep an eye on too. This is a bank level sitting right here at this 675 point. And you can tell that because of where price was previously at as well. So we'll get a little more into like market structure, I guess a little bit later on down the road, but market structure is super helpful, and it will help you understand those levels and where you can expect price to do some type of movement at. Whether it be, it's usually the even numbers, but I don't want to get too deep into that. So anyway, looks like AU, we could potentially be seeing just a little bit more consolidation, a little bit of back and forth in between this space before we actually see price taking off. But again, you can still collect some pips. What I would do is wait until at least price gets up to here for that retest, and then it'll probably head back down. But then you could possibly see it kind of hanging out in the mid place of that bank level, and then retesting that as well. So for right now, I'm not really going to be doing much with AU. I'm just going to be kind of leaving it as it is, and then let's see what EU is looking like for the month. Okay, so for EU, funny enough, I actually seen a small, what looked like almost a small head and shoulders, but the neckline was a little janky. So I don't know if I will go with that 100%. But as of right now, it looks like we got a little bit of a push to the upside, but kind of looking at market structure and where price was previously at, and it is specifically at this even bank level, we may not see price get past here. It may just kind of bounce around a little bit. Let's jump. Let me use the ask instead of the mid. Let me jump over to the weekly, and let's take a look and see what that looks like, and we get a little more action in there. So right now it looks like definitely doji, very much an indecision type of situation. But again, this candle was, you have to remember, this was in a week's worth of time. So just because that was happening in a week's worth of time doesn't mean that you couldn't have collected some type of pips from this, depending upon what your strategy is. So let's jump over real quick to the daily. I don't want to spend too much time on, I want to separate or spread the time out evenly for the pairs. So let's see. So as of right now, price is kind of starting up here. Whereas where we were struggling, we weren't struggling. We got past here previously, and then now we're kind of starting back up here. But this is kind of the same thing. If we're not able to get past here, I don't believe that we are headed. We're still headed in a downward direction. Let me try to clear this up a little bit and go to the 4-hour. I will be honest with you, nothing that I was looking at for this week was like, oh my God, yes, I love that. That looks great. So this is, so I'm not, this week is going to be more like a play it by ear kind of thing. And on top of that, we do have the news. News in the beginning and the end of the months are usually some of the more hectic, more impactful news. So let's see what we're doing here. So right here is where I thought that it looked somewhat, let me get this brush tool, where I was seeing what looked like a head and shoulders, but it was kind of janky because the neckline is not as clear. But it's you feel me? You feel where I'm coming from? Like I can kind of see a little bit of head and shoulders, but maybe not quite exactly. So anyway, something to note when you do see a head and shoulders pattern, what it means is that price, okay, think of it like this. Let me grab the brush tool real quick. So let's see. When you have a head and shoulders, it's going to look something to this effect, right? And then you, oops, you have the head. Let me redo that. Sorry. And this is all up in my way. So let's scoot down here. So you have your shoulder, you got your head, it's all at the same spot. Ooh. And then something like that. So then you got your neckline that sits right here. The one thing to remember when using a head and shoulders pattern, treat it like a mountain. And how does a mountain look? Mountains have to, regardless of whether it is, here, I'm gonna do an inverted one too, so you can kind of see that as well. So here's the mountain. We're kind of all going at the same route. Here is the neckline right here. When you see a head and shoulders pattern, the way to trade it, and I'm going to just spend a couple minutes on this just so that you know, you treat it like how you would see like a mountain, like an actual mountain. When you see the mountains, they continue down. Like let's say that was the peak of the mountain, right? So that's what it would kind of look like. But keep in mind that this is this piece right here. Hold on a second. Ooh. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Hang on one second. I'm sorry. I want to make sure that it's clear and it's not like turning it. Okay, so keep in mind this is your head and shoulders piece right here, right? But when you see a mountain has like the peaks and the valleys, right? So once the mountain goes up, just know that it's got to come back down. So even if you see an inverted head and shoulders, where do you think this is going to go? If you see it headed, if it looks like this, it's going to continue up because it's got to continue. It's got to continue forming the mountain, right? If it's inverted. If it's the other way and it's just a regular head and shoulders, where's it going to go? It's going to continue down so it can continue where the peak is. I hope that that's helpful. I'm trying to understand. I'm trying to explain this in a way that is helpful. If it's not, please let me know. I'll figure it out. We'll figure out another way. But I just wanted to kind of go over that with you just because I was able to see that as like a small, small example and a possible head and shoulders. And I wanted you to understand the easiest way to trade it. So let me jump back over here. I just wanted to get rid of some of that notation. Okay, that's another thing. As you're going through so that you don't confuse yourself, yes, I will keep a couple of levels on, especially like bank levels or close to bank levels, so I can kind of remember where I was the week prior, but delete some of the stuff off of your chart so it's not so cluttered. Okay, so as of right now, I do not have any plans on making any moves when it comes to EU. It is still I'm still kind of biased about it kind of looking like we could potentially see it be coming back down, but you can kind of see where price had kind of ended with this last little bit of candle on the daily, let's see, which is weird. And we may have a little bit of a gap. We'll just have to see. But until we're able to get up above here, I believe that we are still in a maybe a short-term trend, downtrend. But we'll also keep an eye on this space because it looks like a pretty common space where price had kind of touched at in the past as well. So again, I don't have any plans to do anything with EU as of right now. We'll just have to keep our eye, and it looks, even from here with that head and shoulders, it looks like a little bit of consolidation. So we're just going to have to wait. This also looks like a tweezer bottom, and price could be headed back up for a little while. So again, possibly consolidation. We'll just have to wait to see. Let's switch over to GU, and on GU I did something a little bit special, like I kind of mentioned at the very beginning of the video, where I took a couple clips about how to set up an alert, how it's going to look on your phone, and then how it's going to look on the monitor, and I will insert that now.
Okay, so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you can actually plug it in, and then this is kind of where you'll see your order, just depending upon which broker you're using. I actually use Forex.com, so this is how mine is set up. When I go to put in the pair that I'm wanting to set the alert with, sometimes it won't work if it is cap or not capitalized, but for some reason it looks like it actually was able to kind of pull through and work this time. But just something to keep in mind if you use Forex.com. I used AUD as an example, so we're going to plug that guy in, and then once it pops up, we're going to choose it. Then we'll come over to the dashboard and we'll be able to put what numbers we want in here. So how this works is if you're wanting to put an alert above like a space, just so that I'll insert a picture at the end so you know what I'm talking about. This allows you to pick buy or sell. So like, let's say I'll set this just above and I want to know when price gets there, so I know to or remember to buy at that price point. You can do the same thing for a sell, depending upon, or you can do the same thing for a sell on whatever pair you decide. So we want to go back, and I'll show you that you're not going to be able to see this if you're using Forex.com on your phone, but I am going to insert again that photo at the end so that you'll be able to see that you can see it on a monitor if you're using like a stand-up computer.
Okay, so with inserting that, I hope that that was helpful to kind of see how to set up your alerts. This is going to keep you from having to sit by your computer as long. This will help you so that you can just kind of get rid of some of that dead space, unless you're somebody that likes to sit in front of the computer. Setting up the alerts will be super helpful for you, so you know too that even when you're in a position, the alert will go off and allow you to put yourself in another position. Because I know I get kind of stuck, especially when I'm like, I get invested in a pair that I feel like maybe moving for that day, that week. I can get so invested that I forget that there's totally like a crap ton of other pairs to choose from that are moving or could be moving in a really good direction to catch some of those pips as well. So let's see. When it comes down to GU, it's kind of the same. I mean, I do feel like we are still going to continue to see GU headed up on the upswing. But let's jump down. So this is the monthly. Monthly says that it looks like we could potentially be seeing price get to this, close to this bank level. Let me see. Yes, close to 132. And then we'll kind of go from there. But for right now, price is looking like it is headed up. Let's go to the weekly and take a peek. So it's making slow stride to the upside. It looks good. It looks like on the weekly, like we could be potentially having a pullback right now, which is good. You do want to see that, especially when you're just kind of waiting for price to get moving. So weekly looks good. Let's jump over to the daily, and I try to go back and forth between time frames just to kind of get some confirmation. Price had a really deep pullback here, which is good if you kind of caught it while it was happening, so you could actually place your stop loss just below here and you would have been already in profit. But what I would wait for is just the next pullback. Don't find yourself getting into the position and then you've missed the pullback. The pullback will happen potentially again in this area, and you could be losing out on a lot, or you'd have to have this really large ass stop loss, and you don't want to do that if you can avoid that. So that's something to keep in mind if you're going to place yourself in a long position on GU this coming week. Let's jump to the 4 hour real quick. All right, so let's see. See, what's crazy is on the 4 hour, looks like we could potentially be headed in a downward direction. We're just going to have to wait to see exactly what happens with price when the market opens back up, because even though it looks like that with this push, we could be just headed back up. This might have been like a funky fake out situation that we had here, where price kind of just held for a second down there, and then we could see price potentially continue to push up. Let me jump over to the 1 hour for just 1 second and see if that looks any different. I still feel the same though. I mean, I feel like it's easier when you use the 1 month and the 1 week And sometimes the 1 day, just kind of to give you some guidance as to what you think that the market is doing. I think it's going to hold though. I think it should be able to hold above here. We'll just have to see, because this looks like an area where price has previously touched a few times. You know what I'm saying? That's something to keep an eye out for when it comes down to market structure. Sometimes where price is previously held at, you could see, price continue to hold that and use it as support now, rather than resistance. Where it was resistance before, it could now be support. So we'll just have to see what happens. Let's go ahead. I did not switch over to the ask. Always switch over to the ask. Do you see how that changed? Let me make this bigger. This is why it's important to switch from the mid to the ask. Keep an eye right up in here, real quick. Do you see? Now, if you had placed your stop loss or something wild, it could have stopped you out because you didn't even have it on ask. Anyway, so let's switch over to UJ real quick and give that our analysis for the week. UJ looks like it's actually still headed up in an upward direction. And we're looking at potentially more long positions when it comes down to UJ. Let's jump over to the weekly real quick and see what that's looking like. So, it's funny. I actually had planned to set up a position on UJ, but I am waiting. Let me swim down here because I don't think you can see it. What happened? Okay, there we go. Swing down here for a second. I'm kind of waiting for that retest. Okay, so what price is doing right now is it's giving me a retest, which I may end up getting in on, but I was just wanting to be sure where to place the stop loss at. It almost feels like it would have to be far down here, but this is on the daily, so no, let's not do that. Let's scoot over to the 4 and see if we could put up, possibly get a more sniper stop loss in there. So let's see, it would have to probably be just below here where price is previously, wicked at really bad up in this area. And when you start to look at the chart more often, you'll see where all the wicks are at. And I just did that just so that you can kind of see where price is kind of resisting at. And then now what could potentially happen is this turning into or being resistance here, this could now be turned into support over here. We'll just have to we will just have to give it some time to see what the market is going to do. If I have my eye on something, it is here, and that's because I want to see price get here kind of for that retest, and then I'll go ahead and buy for possibly a short period of time. So that is all I have for you today. I hope that all of this was helpful. Please let me know in the comments. I really wanted to make it very clear as to kind of how I add my alerts, and hopefully you can use that tool to your advantage as well. Thank you so much for being a part of the journey. Get after it.